All right, so we're going to go ahead and get our first bit of homework started. I pretty much, I guess what I would like to show you today is just how to get your project going and get some PHP written for and completed for your assignment. Now, since we're using scripting, we're going to be embedding the code into an HTML document. Which I don't really agree with, but it's a good way to start learning. So let's go ahead and begin with a project. Now I chose NetBeans because it's free and it's a good resource. The problem with NetBeans is it's it's free code, so it tends to be a little bit more buggy than what you would find for your typical paid for program. So you want to kind of be a little bit on the backup-y side. I've actually had it, if you do too many things like delete a folder out of here, I've actually had it, delete everything else in the folder too. So try to be careful when you're working with NetBeans and your directory structure and you're trying to delete files within NetBeans. Don't do it. Go to your directory and delete a file from there in that manner. Whatever directory you have, you go and delete your file. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a project first, and it's going to be a PHP project, and one thing you're going to need to do is you're going to want to configure NetBeans to be able to handle PHP. And so that is going to be most likely some of the packages that you add to NetBeans for PHP. So let's go ahead and just do a search for that. Let's just do NetBeans package manager. What I usually do is I just install everything, but you can go in, and if you really need to get into like the specifics of PHP and that type of code, you do it with NetBeans package manager. So go ahead and just do a search for that, and it'll give you information on how to add the PHP packaging to NetBeans for you. So probably search for NetBeans add PHP, something like that. Oh, tools, plugins. How to enable PHP support in NetBeans. There it is. Let's go to tools, plugins. There we go. Okay, so this is where it gives you all the available plugins. So if you want to do like JavaScript or whatnot, Java, anything that NetBeans is able to have. And you're just going to go ahead and choose the PHP. One of the things I usually do is I just go and I click on category and I find where PHP is and I just throw them all in there. But sometimes you get some things that you really don't want. But then that's going to allow you to create a PHP project. And you're going to want to do a local PHP project, and then what you have to do to test it is you have to put it in your www directory of your web server for WAMP. So we have to actually start WAMP up so that we can test this. And WAMP, you also have to stop your IIS, Internet Information Services, for it to actually work and go green. So if you see, I just started WAMP here and it started up green, so that means all my servers are running. So what I'm going to want to test this project is I'm going to do two things. I'm going to set this project as a local in a local directory. That means I'm going to create the project to be on the desktop. But I'm going to have it copy the files that I create over to the www server so we can test it through the server. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go ahead PHP application. So remember our first video, everything's just a program. Here's where things changed. We went from executables because executables have a whole bunch of problems security wise and whatnot, and we went towards more of a scripting for server-side programming. And the reason being is a couple of different reasons. It's safer, it's easier to recover from errors, and it also handles the part of writing the code easier. So PHP is actually designed as a language to write code, to print code. That's what it's designed for. That's why it has all those weird little characters that begin with our variable names, so that it is capable of being embedded into an HTML document, and then when you're actually going to have that code run, it loads into the executable and then outputs what the part of the PHP, or runs the process of that PHP inside of the HTML document. I actually wouldn't even go with embedding, but that's how we're going to start learning. Maybe if we have time after this video, I'll show you how you would actually do it. We probably might do that, but we will go with embedding from here on out as you are learning. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a PHP application. Now, here's one thing that I suggest for your work habits. Put it on the desktop so you know where it's at. That way you can mess with it. Try to go with your most recent version of PHP. Now, this default encoding, UTF-8, that's our standard encoding. That's just basically, it means ASCII code. That means that it's the character set that you're using. And when you look up ASCII code, that's our UTF-8. And basically the characters that our keyboard. And we call it UTF-8, and the reason why we refer to it as that is because that is its encoding descriptor for all the different types of encoding out there for Unicode. So remember that ASCII code starts the coding, and Unicode is where you get into, like, maybe if you need to map Chinese characters. So the only thing the ASCII code is doing is mapping our regular characters, like the letter A or the space, to the number 32. So remember, everything's a number in computer science. So that's what UTF-8 is, just basically our standard ASCII code, but we're using the name, the UTF-8 example, because we're describing it in Unicode terms. So let's go ahead and get going into our first assignment here. I'm going to, now this is important on what you call your project name, because it's actually going to be in that folder. I'm going to call this one week 1 CS316. You guys will have your own CSIT 316. You guys will have your own naming conventions for your assignments. And then I'm going to throw it on the desktop for ASCII encoding, our normal encoding. Now here is where I'm going to take and hit next, because I got all this done. We don't need this metadata. Okay. Now the run configuration. So this is where we set it up, and it actually will take and it will set what we build, our project, into the local URL, but we don't want it to be desktop. We want this to be week 1. So if we go to localhost week 1, index.php is what's going to show. So this is what's going to do the job of taking what we develop and copying it over to our web server on the local host. So we want to copy source files from the source folder, and where does it go? Well, it's going to go in the folder that we're going to call week 1 on the local host, which is in the www directory. So we just go over here and we go to our C drive, which is our www directory, which is where our web server is running from. If I can actually find this silly thing. Okay, here we go. There we go, C drive. Okay. Now WAMP is running. We've got green. Everything's going. So our web server should be running. I previously installed XAMPP, but I'm using WAMP right now. So here's our www folder. That's the folder we want it to copy to, and it's going to automatically put the week 1 after it. So when we test it, it'll be localhost week 1, and we should have an index.php in there. That is going to be created as part of our project. But all our files we're going to have automatically copying over from our local directory on the desktop to our testing directory, which is on the web server. Okay, So I've got those copy of the files from the source folder to another location. They're going into the www folder so I can test it. Then I'm going to say next. And we need none of this. None of this. Don't make sure those are unchecked. I'm going to say next again. I'm going to make sure those are unchecked. Oh, I think we're good. Cool. All right. So here is. It looks like I might have messed something up because we should not have this much stuff. Okay, I am going to pause the video and come back to this. Unless, interesting. You know what? I will be right back. I want to see exactly what I did wrong. Okay, so evidently I should have created a folder before I created the project. So we're going to try this one more time. Let's go ahead and go to new folder, and we're going to call this week 1 CSIT 316. Okay, and now I'm going to NetBeans, and I'm going to create another project, but I'm going to put it in that week 1 folder, and I think that was my main issue. Because the project file itself was at the wrong directory scope. So I'm going to create a PHP application next, and now this time I'm going to go ahead and call it week 1 CSIT 316. But what I'm going to do different this time is I'm going to specifically it looks like sources folder I'm setting up right. But I'm going to go to the desktop, and I want to make sure that that folder that I created has been set properly for my project folder. There. And that's a mistake I had, is I literally created the project at the desktop scope, and I should have done it at a folder scope such as this. Okay, so let's go next. Copy source files, and we're going to go ahead and choose the copy over again. I believe I'm just going to go ahead and choose the www folder. And notice it automatically puts the CSIT 316. We might actually have to go in there and create that folder. And I only want to copy files from the source folder to another location. I don't know if I want to copy the files when the project opens. That could cause a problem. So no, I only want to test it. Okay. So next, don't need any of those. Oh, next, don't need any of those. Finish. And now we shouldn't have that weird stuff in our source file. See, there's our source file. It's nice and clean. Let's look at actually what our directory structure looks like. Here's the folder I created. Now I put my project in there, and you notice it just says NB project. So that is the better way of building your PHP project. Build the folder first. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create an index file, and index.php. Now this is going to be the actual HTML document that we're going to use to embed our code, and it's also what's going to be opened up automatically when we visit the web server's folder of localhost week 1 CSIT 316. It'll have index.php in it, which will basically be our PHP script. So I'm going to go here to file, to the project, and I'm going to say add a new file. And it's going to be a PHP file, and we're going to say next, and then this one we're going to actually call index, and that's way so it'll actually open up automatically. So you notice here it's got index.php. That does the same thing as index.html. It's just whenever we go to that folder, it'll automatically open that file for the web browser to render, which will have our PHP code in it, which will print information out to the browser. We're probably going to do, I can't remember what assignment, I wanted to actually do an assignment with you for this first day so that you knew kind of how to get started and your way around working with server-side scripting. Of course, you can choose whatever technology you want, but this is our first implementation of a server-side script. And you notice it starts with PHP. Now you notice it doesn't have the end PHP, because you actually shouldn't be doing what the book is telling you to do, which is actually putting HTML script in. You should actually just be printing HTML script from your PHP. But we're going to go ahead and do that just for learning, because mostly you have to have that end here for closing your PHP script. what you do when you're doing everything just PHP, everything's PHP, so you never end your PHP script for your whole website. But when you are embedding the script into an HTML file, you have to end it. Because the other version, you just print everything with your code instead of having static HTML. Static HTML is just kind of worthless, but it's a good start for you guys to learn, kind of what is needed and how things are done. So let's go ahead and start with some instructions. We have our folder. What we can do is just to print this is we can do a just to print some information. We can do a print. Now we can print HTML tags here if we wanted to, but I'm just going to throw it in as hello world, and the browser will render it without HTML tags. It'd be just like going and typing hello world in HTML file. It might actually error out. It'll probably have some problems. So we'll just set it. But let's go ahead and do run. Project F1. Now you see right here, it automatically went when I said run. I'm going to go ahead and do this again. Because I set everything up properly, when it runs, it's going to automatically start our script from the browser directory, from the WAMP directory. Okay, so when I say run here, run project, notice the directory it pops up. Microsoft? No. I just had this stupid thing up correctly. Okay, so let's try it again. There it is. Okay, so you notice here that it starts up and you see it says localhost week 1, and there's the folder, and index.php. So what's happening is everything that we write here in code is actually being saved in this folder. And then when we test it, everything in this folder gets copied over to our www directory so that we're actually testing it on the web server. And it's actually testing this file right here, index.php, in your www folder. And that's what that localhost www goes to. And so this is the beginning of your server-side scripting, and we have it working, and we're able to test it. Now here's the problem. Debugging is a holy hell when you're doing this. Because when you're debugging, you're actually needing to test a service that's running under a whole different username. Remember that Apache web username I was talking about in our last video? Well, since when you run this is actually running on a whole different user than you. It's running through your web browser, and it's coming in as your web browser user with those authentications. So that means that when you're a user running a process over here, such as Josh, the guy that I log into on this machine, I have no access. Any executable access to anything on the www folder. Only the Apache user has that. And the Apache user starts up when you run the web page. It runs a web page as the Apache user. So you have no rights or capabilities of examining this executable other than literally putting print commands in and finding where a problem is. There are third-party solutions to this. And one of them is in NetBeans, and it is. I've only literally gotten. I got it installed and I got it working once, and then that whole little delete thing happened, and I lost my whole website, and that was enough for me to know exactly how to make it work and how the debugging is implemented, so that. You understand it's actually a third-party process that has to go in and take control and examine what's going on with that Apache web user. And that's why debugging is difficult. It's holy hell when you get to Ajax. It's even worse. So that's something that we would have to talk to separately. Here's the issue. We're dealing with third-party software. We're dealing with free software. So whenever you add a third-party software to it, if you don't do it exactly right, or if your machine, some machines just won't do it. I mean, literally, it's crazy weird. But you're going to want to, as far as your development process goes, you're going to want to go towards debugging. You're going to have to. Especially when you get to the higher level stuff, such as logging into a database and getting information from it. So that's something that you will install and get working depending on what technology you're actually using. So let's go ahead and look at one of our assignments. I'm going to go ahead and bring up Vital Source, and we're going to go ahead and do one together. Then I'm going to go ahead and let you finish up for this week's assignments, and you should be set to be successful. So I'm going to go ahead and look at, I think it's, I'm going to do 2-4, I think is the one that I looked at that I liked and I thought would work really well. One nice thing about this is I can actually copy paste the code from your instructions. A little trick you might want to think about, instead of doing analog, you might want to think about getting going with the PDF, because it actually helps you get the code from the book to work with. The code from the book is also on Canvas, so you can have that available to you too. So let's go ahead and go to chapter 2, and we're going to go to 2-4, which it looks like I'm already actually viewing. So we're going to go ahead and build an HTML file. I think we're going to have to call it index.php. What is it that they say? You know what? Let's just back up. Let's look at 2-1 and see if it's a little bit better for you to get started at. I think maybe 2-4 is not the best place to start. Let's look at 2-1. 2-1 is going to be very close to here. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and just go to pages. 2-2. Oh, here we go. This is actually a good one. Odd numbers. Okay, so this is, they actually say create a new document in your text editor. It's going to be a PHP document, and we're actually going to mix. This is where we can mix static HTML, although remember, it's horrible to do unless you're learning, with actual server-side programming. So we're going to go ahead and create this thing called oddnumbers.php. I'm still just going to call mine index.php. Go ahead and name yours odd numbers for the folder, but you don't need to do oddnumbers.php. Index.php is probably better. And then the first thing we're going to do is just statically put in the HTML stuff we need, and then embed a PHP script inside of it to print out some information. So let's go ahead and create an HTML document just so we can steal the code, the starting code for it, so I don't have to type it in. So I'm just going to go over here to HTML file, and it should give me a new HTML file that I'll just grab the code from, and we'll get rid of it. So I'm going to go ahead and here to copy, and then over here to delete. And now we have the static values that we need for our PHP document. So remember, I would not do this. I would have a function that would print this, that would do this. It would print, it would do this. This is not how you would do it. You would do this. You would say print HTML. Then you would go print head. Okay, so you guys get the idea that static is not the way to go. Because what you would do is you would have a whole function that just said print header, and it would print everything that you needed in the header of every page in your website, and you would just send it different arguments to behave differently. Then you would have something like print body, and it would just print the body down here, and then you would have print footer, and it would print this last bit. And then you could just design those functions to have a whole website all done through functions and different arguments passed to those functions. But we're not going to start there. We're going to start with static and embed. So just understand that this is the way you actually do it, not embedding. That is kind of like a break your fingers type offense when you're actually doing this for real. You would do it this way, like this, and then you would leave this off. And then all the code would be PHP. But since we're embedding, we have to add our script end. And we have to embed it in between some of these tags. And I'm going to do it in the body. And now this is where we can actually start writing some HTML tags, but we want to actually do some code. We want to write a loop that prints numbers. So you know me, I'm always working with 7 or 8 languages a day, and it always takes me a while to remember how to actually do things. in a specific language. So if I remember right, PHP is fairly close to the C-based structure. And I think might be for var I. We'll just try this out and see if it works. Because we want to do odd numbers. And before I start getting into, okay, I got to cheat. PHP for statement. PHP for statement. Where are we at? PHP for loops. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. I remember. Okay, so this is another thing with PHP that you got to kind of get an understanding for, and that's because you see this dollar mark. There's a reason for these stupid little dollar signs, and that's because you are literally embedding this code inside of an HTML document, or actually you're using this code to write code. And that's the key, is we have to have the ability to differentiate between what is the PHP code and what is the code that PHP is outputting, which could be HTML tags. And that's why you have these weird, funky syntax. Like to add two strings together, you use the dot, the period operator. So just understand why it is the way it is, and that's because of the job it does. And that's why PHP took over as the server-sided programming language of choice, is because it is optimized to write code. It's code that writes code. Okay, so we have our X variable that we got to create here with our $sign and assign it to 0. So we're going to go ahead and go back here and looks like I was doing Python there. Okay, so let's see, $sign equals, I think you got to do a $sign for everyone, and that's what tells the interpreter that this is actually a variable and not code that you're trying to print. Okay, so I think that is the next bit. $sign, everything else looks like it's C-based, so that looks good. Okay, and it looks like we just need to do odd numbers, so we can put an if statement in here. If we can do a mod 2 for even or odd. If let's see, $sign. If you take I and you divide it by 2, and the remainder is 0, then it's odd. If you divide by 2 and the remainder is 1, then it's even, and that's what that modulus operator does. So we're going to say I mod 2. If it's equal to, what we're supposed to do odd numbers, I think. If it's equal to 0, we're going to output it. And we can throw in some HTML tags in here to get our output a little bit better. But if I mod 2 equals 0, then that means that we're going to print. And here's what we can do is let's go ahead and just make this one, let's do an H1 tag here. H1 tag just for fun. And then after the loop is done, before the loop is done, we'll do H1 to set it so that the output is all going to be a heading tag. And then when the loop is done, we'll shut down that tag. Okay, I think that is fairly close to 2-4. It looks like we're seeing an error here. Semicolons. Oh, not on if statements though, and not on for statements. Okay. Let's see if this works. Okay, let's test it, and it's going to open up our thing for the W. Okay, so I guess if I have it just printing H1, obviously we have a problem there because it's not supposed to show H1 because that's a tag. And it's probably because it's in the if statement. Duh. Okay. This should be at the very end. And the if statement should be print I. Yeah, just I. Because if it passes that, then it's an odd number. So we start the h1 tag first, then we end the h1 tag, and let's see if it's able to properly do the tags. Okay, it looks like we got a problem there. Ah, the \h1. I'm wondering if I need my escape sequence for that. Let's do the 2 forward slashes for that. Nope. Looks like I'm going to go back and do a little researching for PHP print \. I'm wondering if because I should be able to print that \, for that HTML. I wonder if I'm doing the tagging wrong. I'm going to go ahead and pause it, and then I'll finish this up, and then we'll call it a day. Okay, last bug found. All I was forgetting was my open caret here. I call them carets, even though it's a less than sign. One thing I want to show you talk to you about what is HTML special chars. HTML special chars. It's basically it's a function that you can use to help you with conversions and writing code that writes code. So if you need some special characters in a string, especially things like the ampersand, double quotes, single quotes, less than, greater than, you use these replacements in the code instead of the actual sign, the less than. And these are for the non-standard escape sequences that you need. The standard C-based escape sequences, like the double forward slash, works is not really needed for PHP, and that's one reason why PHP has taken over other C-based languages for this type of work, is because you don't need to do that double slash. PHP is built to handle your escape sequences either implicitly or explicitly. Okay, now we're ready to test this, and we have success. So that looks like the only thing that I would need to do is like maybe print a new line. And since we're using HTML, I think we would want PHP print HTML new line. I think it's %mbsp or something like new line. Yeah. PHP print new line. So how to create a new line? And no, we don't HTML new line. We just need it. We'll just print it. HTML new line. We'll print it from PHP. Add a line break in HTML. Okay. I think it's %mbsk. BR. That's not as good. Okay. Now, okay. Let's go ahead and do the BR.
From badass.
Excuse me. Let's not worry about Alexa. Okay. So we've got here for each number print. It looks like we can just do this. I would like to do the traditional %mbsk, which is a little bit better. BR sometimes is not actually really well done. Okay, yeah, so that's why. That's why I don't like the BR tag. It doesn't usually always work the way it should. That's because I put it out of scope. Well, that would definitely cause a problem. Okay, so let's get it in scope with our little thingamajiggers. Let's test it one more time. And result. Okay, guys, this gives you a working start and some examples on how to get started with your, or an example on how to get started on your assignment and work with your assignments. Again, debugging is a challenge, even for me, because of the free tools. So if you really want to get into, you would want to look into more of the pay for tools. If you want to have more access and look at some of the tools out there that are more readily used in the commercial level. I chose this tool because it's free and it's also updated and it's been around for a long time. Apache makes use of it, and it will be around for a long time from here on out. So NetBeans is actually a good solution. It's just the debugging for PHP that makes it a bit difficult. Start using your print commands to back to your old school debugging techniques until you can get your third-party debugging software working. And of course, I think I might have a few links on Canvas to get you started on the particular one to use. Other than that, thank you. Bye. And on to another video on another week. Thank you.